Hey guys, welcome to another Achieve More podcast. My name is Anthony. Find me on YouTube at Picksburgh, where I do a lot of cool travel videos with my fiance. Recently, we just went to Australia, so there's tons of really cool Australia videos on the channel. So make sure you go and check those out. It's also the video home of the Achieve More podcast. So if you want to come and see how handsome we are, you're going to have to come over to Pittsburgh. We'll also introduce Michael, who's the co-host. He has a YouTube channel called Huddle Card Collection. How you doing today, Michael?
Great, buddy. How are you?
Can't complain, brother. How's everything going over on Huddle Card?
Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. Hey, Anthony. So, Huddle Card Collection. It's sports cards and a sports card centric, channel. Do a live show every Wednesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern time. So, if you're into sports cards, buying, we talk about buying and selling also, as long as everything that it has to do with the sports cards hobby. And again, we talk sports. We talk wrestling, we talk Marvel, we talk basically everything that has to do around that kind of sports or trading card hobby. So come on, love to have you show up on a Wednesday night and hang out in the chat and have a really good time.
Absolutely. I highly suggest you guys do that. But without further ado, we have a special guest on the program today. We have Jayson Johnson, who is the founder of Strike Five Films in the San Francisco Bay Area. He's produced 20 films, he's written 10 scripts, and he's directed 8 projects. He also has a streetwear brand called. How are you doing today, sir? Welcome to
I'm
the.
doing great. I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. We appreciate you being with us. Tell me a little bit about yourself. How did you get into the movie industry?
Uh, I I feel like the film industry chooses the individual person. Personally, I'd gone to college. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I took speech communication, and probably midway through the program, I had an opportunity to be on a feature film. And I really loved it. It was like a really small budget project. I was a barbarian that sipped wine, and it was kind of a silly premise, but it really hooked me. And from that moment on, I worked from the for the school newspaper, drawing comics, and then I also worked for the television show that produced the nightly news segment. So that's kind of how I got my start. But it really ramped up when I got a job working for Francis Ford Coppola after college.
Oh wow.
That's incredible.
In Chicago?
No, actually in California. There's actually a little bit of a story to that. I don't know how much time we have, but
Yeah,
I'm a guy that has lots of stories. But
Yeah.
anyway, after we graduated, my girlfriend and I at the college, I told her, look, I will move wherever we get, the other person gets a better job. With one exception, I will not move to California on any circumstance. And she just so happened to get this tremendous opportunity in California. They paid for our relocation. They paid for first month's rent. They paid for just everything. So I couldn't really dispute it. So I moved to California, not really having a job, and I sent out probably about 15 to 20 resumes, and only one place responded, which happened to be Francis Ford Coppola Winery. So I became a wine steward for a summer, and then that's kind of how I got my start into the industry.
that's really cool. So, as you were a wine steward, was he actually there, and you got to pick about the movie industry as well?
So initially, he was there, but he was really like on the periphery.
Mhm.
His wine industry is a $1 billion business, so he's not really there as much as you might think that he was.
Mhm.
And when I went there, I was kind of starstruck. I said, "Oh my God, I'll get to work with Godfather." And people were saying to me, because it's a large company, you'll never work with him. It'll never happen. And by the end of, I don't know, 4 or 5 months, I was working with him on his creative marketing team. So it's just, you just really never know. So
Mhm.
Very cool.
Nice. Do you feel like that was really your like barrier point to establishing yourself within the industry?
Uh, maybe. I think the industry for me has been like a lot of breadcrumbs. So, it's just like you have this breadcrumb and you walk aimlessly and then you find another one. So that's kind of how I've progressed in this career. Um, it's something that I wish I had a mentor because I haven't had a mentor as of yet. So a lot of it has been trial and error, just trying to figure things out. So that breadcrumb analogy is really true for me.
So you said your first taste came when you were the barbarian, right? So you were on the front side of the camera, but then
Mhm.
now you're producing, writing. What made you? What was the driving force to get going on the other side of the camera?
Yeah, so I initially thought that I wanted to be an actor, and so I would go to all these auditions, and they would say, you, not you, Jason," and then they would go down the line. And I said, after like 20 times of getting rejected, it's like this is like a big waste of time and money, because you're driving to all these locations. So I said, I'm going to start writing projects where I could be cast in them, and that way I can guarantee that I'd get on screen. But after I did that, I said, "Wow, it's just I really don't want to be an actor." So that's when I started to direct and to produce.
What was it about the other side of the camera that you found that you liked more?
I th- I think uh, I think for me, I always like the task of bringing people together and then working towards a goal.
Mhm.
I feel like I've always been really goal oriented in that way, and when you make a film, it's very much a lot of that. So I like that. I like working with other people for creativity and bringing a lot of ideas together and kind of honing all that creativity into one singular effort. So that's something that really appealed to me, and it's just something that I've just kind of taken to ever since.
How does it feel to see a finished product that you worked hard on and finally completed?
Uh, I think when it's this, I don't know if this is an answer to the question or not, but when it's done, it's done.
Oh,
So it's like that's kind of like asking a painter, how do you know how many more brushstrokes you have to do?
mhm.
But with the film, you obviously want to go through the production process where you're doing the collection of the media and audio, and then from there you have post production where you have your sound mixing, your coloring, your motion graphics if there are, and then the final packaging of the film. And then once you go through that, I think that that's kind of a recipe as far as you have the core essentials for the film to be complete. As long as all those are good, then hypothetically you're done. But I guess art is never really done, so you could conceivably work on a film project forever if you're a perfectionist and can't move forward on it.
Makes sense. We have a few segments we like to do each show. The first one is called No Dumb Questions, where we let an audience member send in a question. In this
Oh,
case,
great.
the question is if you could hand select any project in all of Hollywood to work on, what would that
Um, that's a really good one. Um, I think for me, since we're kind of going off the cuff, I would really like to work on a remake of the Matrix. I
be?
think they really foiled that project the last couple installments, and I think if they got back to the basics of doing that, uh, we could really see Matrix, 7, 8, 9, just kind of like what Fast and the Furious has done.
Yeah, that would be really, really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When
Um,
you're writing, um, and once I mean, I guess you get the creative, you start your writing and everything. Then when you're considering going ahead and putting that into film, do you start to write based off of like who or what type of actor would be in in each role as you're writing?
Sometimes, just depending on if you have like a particular actor in mind, and you know that that actor, or if he or she would do great at it, then yeah, that can work. For example, I did that for my last film. I knew that I was going to work with an actor, and she was going to be just it was going to be a solo project with just her. So I specifically wrote that project for her. But I think well, everyone's different, so I'll preface it by saying that. But for me, I think that what you want to do is to write something where it's almost faceless and nameless, to the point where any actor can come in and they can lose themselves in the role. And I think as a director, that's what you want, so for that actor to transform into something that that they're not in real life.
So for those that are listening, so when you started off with doing your producing, directing type stuff, were you already on your own, or were you with somebody, and then what was the inspiration for you for starting your own, company?
Um, no, I when I started, I didn't know anything, so I didn't know how to write. I remember going on Craigslist, um, and finding someone that was supposedly a writer, and I took my first screenplay to him, and he read it, and I'm thinking, oh god, this is he's gonna love it. And he said, this is the worst thing I've ever read. So it's just I think that a lot of people may think that you're born with a talent, and there's people that are really born with talents, but it's really upon you to develop them. So I had some writing ability, but I had to develop it, and I didn't know anything about production, so I kind of had to go on YouTube and learn things that I didn't know. Uh, and that's just like with anything in life, if you want to progress, you have to really work hard at it, and be willing to take risk and fail, because that's really the only way to move forward.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Um, there's another segment we typically do in the podcast. It's called "We Have to Ask, You Don't Have to Answer."
Mm.
Uh, my question is, with your company being founded in San Francisco, which is the NorCal part of California, is it still considered like Holly weird in the film industry there, or is it like more normalized?
Uh, I would say it's more tech weird than anything.
I know that's a weird question. We actually have some movies filmed here in Pittsburgh now,
Uh-huh.
and it's not as weird a vibe, if that makes sense. I don't know if it's just like the Hollywood, Southern California, weird old school vibe going on, or I didn't know if that was like spread all around the industry.
I think California is just weird in general. I think it's safe to say that, and I think Hollywood gets the Hollywood tag is because that's primarily the only industry that's down there. So you have people that really get wrapped up in it. They would do anything to be in that industry, and um, they're just willing to do weird things to for fame. I think fame is really this intrinsic thing that has no value. But you see people that will just, they will run over you with a car to become famous. And I never understood it, but that's a real thing. And I think that kind of plays into Holly Weird.
Yeah.
I actually have a story actually. When because I spent some time in LA, and I went to one of these parties that was called Game Night, and it was the guy who started Desperate Housewives and Golden Girls, and he had some guy that had opened his house to all these people in the industry. And I had just finished producing some Bollywood film, and I went in there, just to network and to meet people. So I'm meekly telling this one guy about this film that I just produced. And before I could finish, he was just like, well, when I was on Pirates of the Caribbean. And then before he could finish, some guy was like, well, when I was on the Terminator, and I was just like, oh my God, this is like a big pissing contest.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I gotta get out of here. I was literally drained from this.
Yeah. So so you've written, you produced, you directed. So for those that are, I mean, those that are listening or watching right now, I mean, I think a lot of people understand what a writer does. What's the difference between a producer and a director? What's those different roles?
That's a great question. And I didn't know for a really long time. So let's start with director. A director is someone that primarily works with the talent. Uh, he or she will direct the talent as far as the performance that he or she wants to, them to execute. So that's primarily what a director does. But before I move on to producer, there are some like gray areas where a director may tell the cameraman I was thinking of this shot, or tell the other people that are within the project I want this look, or so forth and so on. So the director has a lot of influence, just generally speaking, on the look of the film. A producer is a lot more ambiguous because there's executive producer, there's just producers, consulting producer, there's associate producer. So it's very ambiguous, but generally speaking, a producer is someone that just gets shit done, that needs to be done. And that can be done with money, influence, film locations, getting the film into the right marketing efforts, etc. So yeah, you can. Uh, I'm kind of skeptical when anyone says, "Oh, I'm a producer," and so the next best question is, "Well, what have you produced?" And then they was like, "Oh," they don't even know what it is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. So I think a lot of people will see like at the end credits or the beginning, hey, this is the producer, executive producer, blah blah blah, and director, and you don't really ever think like what are the differences if you're not actually in the business. So that was a great question. What are some of the highs and lows that you've seen or experienced since you've been in the industry?
I would say for most independent producers, directors, the highs are when you have a project that's gotten some type of accreditation or award or money, you make a sale or something like that. That's the definite mountaintop moment.
Mhm.
But that quickly slides down into the valley where you're in between projects. No one is hiring you. You can't raise the money because that's probably a good 90% of it is raising money and positioning yourself for the next project. So uh, all the prep that leads up to the actual making of a film, I would say is kind of the parts that most filmmakers don't enjoy as much as the winning or the red carpet moments. And I found that a lot of people that get into this industry think that it's just that I just walk a red carpet all day long. It's just like, God, I must be exhausted from just walking one red carpet after the other. So,
So were you doing this doing all this stuff obviously during COVID? Um, what was that experience like trying to do this type of work during that time frame?
yeah, it's a great question. I actually did make a film during COVID, and there was a lot of masks and a lot of just, I think people, especially in California, were just, there was just so much fear around it. It was just like, oh my God, I'm going to get COVID, I'm going to die. I remember working with this producer that she had two masks on, and then she had a face shield. And then, she put gloves on as well. And I was just like, I was thinking to myself, why be here?
Mm.
If you're that scared that you're going to get this thing. But, uh, the project that I worked on, we did our best to, keep the certain distance from people and allow only a certain amount of people in the location, etc. So I'm for one, I didn't get vaccinated. I call me a conspiracy theorist, but it never really lined up for me. So I never was really scared of COVID or getting it. But you know, that said, I realize there's a lot of people that were, so we try to take every precaution that we could.
Did you have to do things different as far as, like if certain scenes called for certain things, did you have to what was that stuff did that stuff have to change? Like if a movie was written before, right? And
Mhm.
there's certain scenes in there, would people have had to have rewritten parts of it to kind of fit to be able to make it during that time frame?
Uh, I'm sure that there were projects that did do that. Uh, it's an interesting question that you asked because uh, in the film that we did during COVID, there was a sex scene, and I had this male guy that he was very he wasn't the guy with two masks, but he was very leery of getting this, COVID. And then I also had an actress that was, I wouldn't say to the same degree, but scared as well. So they both had these masks on, and so when we said, "Okay, set up for the shot," they took their masks off and they started making out. And then after the shot was over, they put their mask back on. So it didn't really make any sense to me. So, so it's just like, we say action and then COVID says, okay, all right, I'm gonna let you guys go. Uh, and then do the scene. And then, but once we say cut, then, the COVID, is back ready to infect. So it never really made any sense to me, but, I'm here to play the game.
So what is Strike Five Streetwear brand?
So that's a streetwear brand that we created that is curated for creatives, by creatives. I've noticed that on the film set, just people are just naturally interested. You, the second that you put up lights and a camera, people will just stop and watch. And just it was always just really, I thought that was really interesting. And in the film industry, there's a lot of like uh, terminology that the average person may not know. Like, for example, they'll call a clothespin a C47, or uh, a short. And this, I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but a short rigging instrument is called a Gary Coleman. So I thought that there's a lot of things that are really interesting in the film industry that people would have to know about and experience. So I said, why don't we make a streetwear brand that people can kind of immerse themselves in the film industry, and that's what we did. Strike Five uh, clothing.
What was it like starting a streetwear brand?
A lot to learn. It's just you know at any moment, I have like all these labels and things that you have to learn about clothing, and what people like as far as what they will wear, and what will sell. So again, me doing a lot of trial and error, but it's working out. So we've done it for 3 years now, so I'm gearing up for our fourth season of streetwear clothing, and I think we're going to have a runway fashion show this year.
Nice.
Very good. Congratulations.
That's really cool. If you're looking for any plus size models, I might be your guy.
Sure.
But
Well,
no,
connect with them when you're out there in May.
Yeah.
yeah. But no, I genuinely appreciate your time and everything this evening. Where can people find you? Do you have any websites where they can order some of the streetwear?
Sure. It's at strike5films.com. You can also Google me, Jayson Johnson, Jayson Johnson. You should be able to find me, and you could also Google Strike Five Films, and should be pretty easy to find.
Is there any social medias or anything you'd like people to follow yet?
Sure. I'm pretty much on all the socials. you can't keep up these days. It's TikTok, X, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Alignable, LinkedIn, and I'm probably for and YouTube. So that's really all I can really think of. So until I'll be so excited once we finally get a reliable social media person, because I don't want to do this anymore. So
It can be
A
a
lot of
challenge.
work, social media. I mean,
oh
look at
my
this.
god,
I mean,
yeah,
it's crazy because it's like, and at least now there are some things that are the same across the board, at least, So if you film, when YouTube came out with shorts, it was good. Okay, that kind of equal. I could do what I do on TikTok and I can just bring that over here or there. But before it was, okay, gotta film this one this way, this one that way, and change all this stuff. So at least
yeah.
that became a little more synchronized way you could shoot something once and then, throw it out on the different.
It is so much work, and they say that it's much easier these days, but it's not, because back in the in the olden days, you start a business, you put yourself in the phone book, and then that's it. You might run a commercial, but now it's like, I have a publicist, and I said that, hey, I am on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And she said, oh, that's not good enough. I said, what do you mean? You know, she said, well, you have to be on TikTok, and you also have to be on Instagram too. So it's just, so then you go on there, and then she's like, did you write a note on, because LinkedIn added this note feature now. Uh, and then on top of that, they have shorts and reels, and it's just another thing that you have to keep doing.
Mhm.
So it's I can't wait till I hire someone that does all this, and I'm going to treat that person like royalty. I'm just like, never leave. I'll give you whatever you want.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Totally understood.
You can pick out a shirt from the catalog once a month.
yeah.
Yeah,
We'll hook you up with your wardrobe and everything.
awesome.
Yeah.
So, Michael, before we let Jason go, are there any last minute questions you have for
Advice for someone who wants to get into, because you do so much in the film industry between writing, directing, and producing. I mean, so advice for, hey, is it good to jump in and take on all the roles, or is it better to focus on, one particular way? I mean, I know writing is a very, I mean, that's a completely different thing than direct. I mean, I know, like I said, I know they're all different, but if someone's wanting to break in, what's the best way for them to break into the film industry? And if they don't want to act,
uh, See, it's interesting, because nowadays, you know, attention is the currency. It's not necessarily expertise, or how good something is. It's can you get the certain eyeballs onto you? And if that's the case, then I would say start a YouTube channel and talk about you deliberating this idea of wanting to become a filmmaker, and grow your audience from there. And then once you do that, then I think that you'll kind of more or less find your own way. But you have to have an audience first, and that's something that I wish I would have done going back. I'm just not that exaggerated personality that would do well on YouTube. But I think that's probably the best way to start, and then from there you can kind of figure out the rest.
Great idea.
yeah.
And would you recommend, like, for that type of person, if they want to start putting together some little films, maybe even start on like their phone, like an iPhone type thing, and just start editing and uploading some stuff to YouTube, seeing what kind of views they can get and feedback they can get?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Especially nowadays, you everyone has or just about everyone has a cell phone that has video capabilities. So start there, and you can. There's plenty of apps that you can download that you could kind of edit do everything for free. So start where you're at, and then continue to get better 1% each day. And before you know it, we're probably going to be talking about an Oscar winner that started off with their iPhone, probably really soon here. So I think that's the best place to start. You don't have to have everything to start. I know I didn't. You know, I remember my first producing job. I did a Bollywood film, and I thought producers out there, all I did was scream at people. So I would go and scream at all the Bollywood actors and staff, and then I would go on YouTube and figure out what the hell I was doing while they were distracted. So yeah, just start, and then you'll figure it out.
What do you have to say to the person who thinks they have to be perfect from the get-go?
Never gonna make it. You're never gonna make it, because this is a business that is always moving, and it's all about hustle and perseverance. And you can never ever really quit. And I'm sure if you look into the large majority of your favorite actors, YouTubers, what have you, a lot of them have probably been down and out at some point. A lot of them have been homeless. A lot of them have been, down to their last $100, and it's just like, but they had the belief that they could make it, and that they started where they're at. So someone that thinks that, well, I don't have this camera, or I don't have this actor, or whatever, they're gonna be there in 5 years, saying they're starting this project, it's well too late. So just start where you're at.
So, and we definitely appreciate you sharing all of these great tidbits with us today. And again, guys, if you would go and check out Jayson's website. I'm going to have it linked down below in the description notes. Also, check out Huddle Card Collection on YouTube, and also come over to check out Picksburgh on YouTube as well if you'd like to see this in video format. Until the next week, guys, we appreciate you listening to another episode. May God bless you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
I'm from the city. I'm from the city. The city is. I'm from the city. The city is.